Hello, welcome back to Bookshelf Mystic. Today I'll be talking about a book called History of Wolves by Emily Fridland. This book is really unique. The narration and the voice of the author in this book really set it apart from other novels I've read. I read this book as a part of the Around the World in 52 Books reading prompt, a book that has to do with the lyrics to the song My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music. So this one actually fit two of the lyrics. Silver white winters that melt into springs. It actually starts set deep in the frozen winter in Minnesota, and it takes place over the course of the spring and the summer. And also Wind the Dog Bites, kind of a pun on the wolf in the title, but also there are several dogs in the story. So it ended up fitting on two levels. It's set in the North Woods of Minnesota, somewhere in a rural area of the state, a town called Loose River. And the main character, Linda, lives with her mom and dad in a rundown shack in the woods. Now, her family used to be part of a commune that moved to the North Woods to try to live a better life, an alternative lifestyle. And there were lots of adults and children around all the time, but eventually everyone left except for Linda and her parents. Now, as Linda is growing up, there is a family that moves across the lake from her parents' cabin from her, the Gardners. And this family has a young child named Paul, as well as mom and dad. The mom is significantly younger than the dad. And as the story goes on, you realize that there's something kind of off about this family. Now, it's not really a spoiler to say that a tragedy occurs. In fact, it is mentioned in the very first pages of the book. But the way that the plot goes is you learn that this thing happens, then you kind of see how the book builds up to it. It's really a slow burn for the first half of the book as you learn about Linda and her life. You get a lot of details about seemingly random parts of her life until about halfway through this event happens and it sort of hits you in the face. From then till the end of the book, you're really sucked into how this could have happened and why, and what effect it has on Linda. Now, the book is definitely what I would call literary. I don't usually read, well, maybe I should stop saying that because I have been recently, but I think of myself as not reading a ton of super literary fiction. I like it, but it certainly takes a different brain energy to process these types of books. History of Wolves in particular, I needed several days to sit and percolate before I could even write my thoughts down. There's a lot of detail that never is explained. But I'd like to use some of this video to try to take a look at some of the themes in the book and really explore what those might mean. So if you've read this book, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't read this book, feel free to listen to my thoughts, read it yourself, and see if you come up with a different interpretation. So the narration style is really aloof. Linda talks about her experiences and her observations, but she rarely mentions her feelings. You have to sort of surmise her feelings from the way she describes the events in her life. She knows the woods really well, and she spends a lot of time describing the changes in the woods in the changing of the seasons. Linda grew up mostly alone in the woods fending for herself, so a lot of her observations have to do with the natural world. But the way that she includes these details has this sort of inexorability, this inevitableness to the drive forward of the plot. Just as the seasons change, it's almost kind of a sense of hopelessness or perhaps giving up agency as the seasons are changing. These events are just happening, and Linda maybe doesn't see herself as an agent in these events. Now, there's a bit of genius in the way that Linda's narration style forces us to project onto her what we think she is feeling, because it also makes for some extremely surprising choices that Linda makes throughout the book. She is not someone that is super sympathetic. Her character is mean. She purposely hurts the feelings of a lot of people that she knows, but at the same time, she clearly has a deep connection to Paul and his family, and that connection might be warped and weird because of her own upbringing, but it's clear that she cares a lot about what happens to them. But Linda does a lot of surprising things throughout the book. There are several instances where she kisses a character out of the blue and not in an appropriate way, and we don't really know why, and she never explains it. She also does things like paddle across 3 lakes to give a pair of boots to a classmate who, to all that we can tell, doesn't really like her that much. And she makes some really strange choices in her relationships as she gets older and moves on from Loose River. And we never really understand why she does things. She doesn't let anyone into her life, and that includes the reader. Just like people in her life, the reader learns a lot more about who she is by what she says rather than what she tells us she thinks. Even the fact that different characters call her different nicknames, and she doesn't stop to correct them, says something about that closed-offness. Why is Linda this way? Why won't she let the reader or other people into her life? We never really get an explanation, but we get some clues. Her extremely unorthodox upbringing meant that she was around so many people all the time as a child that she never formed a strong attachment to any one parent figure. Once everyone left the commune and her parents stayed behind, she still never became close to them, especially her mom. And this is reflected in the way that she resents much of what her mom does to try to get close to her. But at the same time, it seems like she still wants that parental approval and parental love. Her mother's almost apathetic towards Linda's interests, and the way that she tries to relate to Linda is almost self-centered in a way that she thinks a mother should act rather than actually getting to know her daughter. And in return, Linda doesn't involve her parents in anything that's going on with the Gardners. She doesn't tell her parents what she's doing when she's babysitting Paul. She hardly tells her parents when she goes to Duluth with them. She makes a lot of efforts to make it look like she is involving her parents, maybe to make it look like they're a normal family, but she explicitly does not tell them any details. So the Gardners fill this sort of hole that Linda's been wanting for in her family life. She sees the mother and father and child as maybe this perfect familial unit, and she wants to integrate herself into that family almost by force if she has to. For example, when she practically forces herself into being invited over for breakfast at the Gardners. While I did not want to be friends with Linda, I did find that encounter really charming. She has a complex relationship with Patra, not so much as a mother figure, but almost an older sister or a friend or potentially even romantic. There's a lot of threads of feeling that we can kind of pull from Linda's actions and the descriptions that she gives us of Patra. And not only do the Gardners represent this family that Linda doesn't have, they also have money, which Linda is clearly lacking. The cabin in the woods they live in is extremely run down. She doesn't have a way to get around except for by walking, and she takes a lot of pains to hide the fact that she lives this way. The Gardners have money. They have this nice lake house that they built, and Linda tries very hard to pretend that she knows how to fit into that kind of world. When they travel to Duluth, she makes a point not to tell them that she's never been outside of Loose River. She doesn't want to seem like someone to feel sorry for. I think maybe it comes more from a sense of pride and a sense of wanting to be seen as a full person than it is a sense of shame. But again, she never tells us how she feels about any of this, so this is all up to my interpretation. So amidst this main storyline of Linda getting to know this family across the lake, taking care of Paul, and unraveling this darker family dynamic, there is also this parallel story of a teacher, Mr. Grierson, and these alleged interactions, inappropriate relationship he had with a student, Lily. Now, as the novel goes on, we learn more and more about what did and did not happen in that relationship. But Linda sums up her feelings about Mr. Grierson and Lily with the phrase, "It's not what you do, but what you think that matters." Mr. Grierson, in letters that he writes to Linda, says that he thought about doing those things that were allegations against him so many times that it's almost like he did. And Linda seems to agree with that statement. Yet she flips it around and says the same thing, but in reverse. It's not what you think, but what you do that matters, when she's describing the actions of Paul's parents when it comes to Paul's health. These two sides of the same phrase clearly are meant to set up these parallel stories as foils of each other, but they're so different that it's hard to see a clear metaphor between the two. But it's clear that Linda has some strong feelings about the morality of both situations, even if those feelings don't match what you or I might have. when Linda has a chance to prevent something awful from happening, she thinks very hard about the help that she would like to get, but does not take any actions herself as an agent to do those things. She waits for help to arrive rather than asking for it. I think that's really key to this idea of what you think versus what you do. Amidst these other characters, Linda has an opportunity to be an agent of change to affect the story, and yet she stumbles. There's a lot more I could say about this book. It's dense in its themes and its symbology. I think it needs an English major, which I was not, to write an essay or two about it. I did really like it. I thought that slow burn of the beginning was a little bit hard to get through if I didn't know what the payoff was going to be, but as a review, I would say the payoff is worth it. I would give this book 4 out of 5 stars for its symbology, for its themes, for the fact that it percolated in my mind for so long, and also on the entertainment factor, especially once you get through that beginning part. It's really worth it in the end. So I would recommend the book, especially for fans of contemporary literature that you like to chew on. Serious novels, certainly a very serious novel. So if you do pick it up, or if you've already read it, let me know what you thought. I'd love to have a discussion in the comments.